All right. Welcome everybody to our third episode of Conversion Chronicles. This is the Synergy podcast where marketing and sales converge in every single episode. Hello, Prem. Good morning.
Good morning. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Oh, man. Yeah, right. It's the new year. Oh, man. Things just flew by during the holidays. Like, you're like, oh, I get a week off. And then all of a sudden that week's gone and
Right.
It's the new year. And anyway, so today our episode is about setting goals for doubling your business. We thought it was appropriate for us to talk about goal setting because that's what you do in January, whether it's personal goals or professional goals. We will focus on professional goals, focus more around sales and marketing.
Yes.
But we had a really excellent episode our second episode was, what was it about again? It was all about business mindset, how to be resourceful as an entrepreneur. And we actually had Chris Phelan, the president of the chamber, and he was talking all about the resources that business owners should take advantage of, whether or not you're connected to the chamber. If you're not, you should be. But if you missed it, then make sure you go back on either Spotify or Facebook Live, and you can see our past episodes. It was a really great one.
Yeah, that was a very well orchestrated from Chris Phelan's part because his experience as an entrepreneur and now leading the business community in Huntington. And when Desiree mentioned about being part of the chamber, you could be the chamber member, or you should be the chamber member wherever you are, either United States or anywhere else in the world, because every community has a business chamber, and you should become part of it, and you can not only be participative in the programs they offer, but also give back to the community that you live in. So
Yep,
it is a
absolutely
fascinating episode because he kind of outlined, as Desiree said, a lot of his experiences and also a number of resources that he's lined up in the Hunterdon County. That's very, very good. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think we also talked about the statement that Tony Robbins always alludes to, and that it is not the lack of resources, but it's your lack of
Resourcefulness
that causes failure, which is very true in almost in every one of our lives. So
Yep, absolutely.
Resourceful 2024, but we'll talk more about goal setting this year. So.
Absolutely. So just for those of you who have not listened to our podcast before, my name is Desiree Halleck. I was born and raised in Vancouver. I am the owner of Clarence Services, which is a digital marketing agency. And we are best known for our service called the Webinar Bee. We do a lot of content marketing, but that all is packed up into one full service opportunity for business owners who want to present a webinar and they don't want the headaches or the hassles of setting a webinar up or promoting it. So we take care of all of that at Clarent, and it's a really good opportunity to generate leads for your business. And I used to be a neuroscientist at the beginning of my career for 6 years. I then switched to marketing, made our way across the continent and ended up in New Jersey. I have 2 children, and we live with a bunch of chickens and goats, and it's a fun life juggling the business and the children and the animals. Yeah. And I always put the animals and the children in the opposite because I call my children animals all the time. So
there you go. Right.
So how about you, Prem?
Oh, thank you, Desiree. It's great to have you as the partner in the crime that we're trying to commit here. But my name is Prem Kumar. I'm the owner of Efficace Consulting, which is a strategic consulting enterprise here situated in Flemington. And I've been in business for almost 8 years. But with that said, I've been doing strategic consulting, so to say, all my life, and over 30 years of marketing and sales management experience in life sciences. And about 7 to 8 years back, I decided to launch my own enterprise. And this all started And as I said, I've been strategizing all my life because I landed in this country in the U.S. with $250 in my pocket, March 10th, 1989 to be precise. And I've been strategizing the day I landed in JFK because I didn't know a soul here in the U.S. and knocked on doors, figured a way out to, all these years. So strategy is enjoy it. I enjoy challenges, and I have a lot of fun working with entities in developing strategy. But more importantly, the execution part of it, which is the critical part of results, and hence our topic of goal setting, which is a whole beast in itself, trying to get things going. But just to set the table here, the agenda for today, we're going to reflect on 2023 from a perspective of the critical changes that took place in the marketplace, understanding the power of goal setting, which is critical, and then how do you set goals strategically for 2024. We will talk about the stakeholders in goal setting, alignments of functions, which is what we are about, the alignment of marketing and sales, and then what resources do you need for tracking your goal setting, which is the results part of it, and we'll go through some case studies. So, getting deeper into it, right? So, what are some of the changes? So, reflecting on 2023, of course, as everybody will align with us with the fact that there's been a huge digital transformation that took place. Everything got accelerated, whether it's AI, which is going to be part of our lives moving forward,
Mm-hmm.
and then of course the remote work, hybrid models that are still evolving, I should say. COVID-19 kind of created a lot of hassles, but I would look at it as opportunities to improve upon yourself because the world was headed in those kind of remote environment anyway before COVID. COVID kind of accelerated the changes in the marketplace, but more importantly, it kind of opened up opportunities and gaps within businesses. And of course, the third thing I would talk about is the e-commerce growth, because everything is digital. The best example is Amazon, which if you ask me, it's amazing what they have accomplished. And then of course, last but not least, artificial intelligence, which I said earlier on, which could be part of our lives moving forward, whether you like it or not.
So I remember in when AI first started coming out and people were actually using it, right? It used to be this novel thing. Now everybody and their dog is using it. Even my grandmother, is writing emails with it. It's cute.
Absolutely.
But I remember being ashamed when I first started using it. I was like, this is bad. We shouldn't be doing this. But now we embrace it as a team, and I'm like, use it, not 100%, but let it be your guidance, but not necessarily 100% of what you're doing, because you're going to fall into trouble if you do that.
Absolutely.
But I just remember feeling that shame. Now the shame is gone in 2024. It's 2023 shame. So
there you go. Thanks, Rob. So let's move forward and give you some examples of each of the transformations, digital transformation. The best example there is Microsoft. They transformed their business model completely from a traditional software sales to cloud-based product subscriptions and things like that, like Azure, Office 365, which has taken into consideration the AI, the collaboration tools. So that's an example of digital transformation. If you look at remote work, hybrid modality, Shopify, not Spotify. Shopify is a great example because it's got an e-commerce platform. They embraced the remote work early on, allowing employees to work from anywhere, that matters. So that's a great example of remote work. E-commerce, I already alluded to Amazon. They're amazing at what they do because you get practically anything you want today
from one source.
And then of course, as both Desiree and myself alluded to, AI and machine learning, the AI and the ML part of it, machine learning. Netflix is a great example. Like for example, if I go and see a movie, immediately after you either finish or while you're watching it, it tells you similar movies.
Yep.
Or,
You'll also like.
yeah, you also like, or talking about profiles, right? Which is a great part of business profiling exercise. They have your profile to a T because they've already captured what your likes, dislikes are, and based on that, they recommend movies to you, or shows, or TV series, whatever the case may be. So it's here to stay. AI and machine
Not going
learning
anywhere.
is not going anywhere. But as Desiree said, it's a critical part to understand that you embrace it in a way to enhance your skill set, not the other way around.
Yes.
Because you don't want to lose your individuality or who you are because of AI. AI should be to supplement and enhance your capabilities.
And that brings me to the biggest thing in 2024 when you think about marketing and what your approach should be as a business. Mm-hmm. It's all about authenticity. So how can you be honest, genuine, mm-hmm. tell your story? Storytelling is huge, and you can use storytelling to present your authenticity. And you know what? People don't care about perfection. Everybody knows that perfection is not out there. But when you're authentic, you are vulnerable and you show people that what your failures are, exactly. Right? And that you've learned lessons from them. And that's how we go through life. Nobody goes through life on a straight path, right? So I do want to just talk about quickly the importance of setting goals in business. I think a lot, I come across some entrepreneurs who are just getting started and they're like, I don't need to write it down. It's all up here, right? It's all in my head. And that is a big mistake. You have to write down your goals because if you're not constantly reminded of them, you will get lost and you will go down paths that are not serving your goals. Right. So if you don't set them, you don't know if you succeeded, right? Exactly. How do you know? If you have goals, but you have no plan, then you'll never reach the goals, right? And if you have goals and don't write them down, then you won't know how to measure the success and whether or not you've reached your goals. Right. So, and really the most successful businesses in this world are not ones where they kept their goals in their head. Right. They're ones that wrote it down, put it on the wall, constant reminders, constant team collaboration, making sure it's very, very clear cut what everybody on your team, their responsibilities are, and only focused on meeting those goals.
Absolutely.
So,
and to that end, Desiree rightfully pointed out the authenticity part, right? Writing down goals, to me, keeps you authentic, meaning that you visualize that goals wherever you write it down every day, because it's a visual piece that you can renew your thought process on a daily basis. And to Desiree's point, which is so very critical in this world where priorities are a little misplaced, if you ask me, and not for everybody, but a lot of represented priorities. Mm-hmm. One of the things that goal writing does, it brings the authenticity and your character and being true to yourself into light. So
yes,
it's an important element of succeeding with goal setting. But
absolutely,
let's dive into some of the specific strategies. That's right.
So really, I want to take everyone through a lot of people when they're creating goals, they're not specific enough. So I want to go through goal setting using the SMART goal strategy, where each of the letters, represent a certain thing. So we're going to talk about being specific and clear about your goals, having them measurable, sure. Achievable, relevant, and time bound. So that's what the SMART goals stands for. And any of you can look this up on the internet. Right. It's very, very clear. It's all over the place. So this isn't our secret or anything, but I want everyone to keep this in mind when you are setting your goals. So when we talk about setting goals, being specific and clear, what I mean by that is, okay, I want to increase my revenue, but what exact number do you want to hit, right? So be very clear. How many clients do you need in order to hit your revenue goal, right? So those are measurable, which brings us to the M in the SMART. So you want to be able to match a key performance indicator or KPI to every goal that you set. That's the only way you're going to be able to measure them. It's not a feeling, it's an actual number.
Correct.
So revenue, if it's an annual thing, you break that down to quarters, you break that down to monthly. We'll go over that a little bit later today. But also, how many clients do you need in order to hit your goals? What is your average MRR per client, monthly recurring revenue, that you need to hit for each of those clients in order to hit your revenue goals? So, and then you work backwards, right? Leads. How many leads do you need to convert into the client numbers that you need?
Absolutely.
Then your goals have to be achievable. So what I love to do, and when we say this, anybody can say, oh yeah, right now I'm making, 500,000, but I want to make 20 million next year. Okay, we can say that, but is that obtainable? Correct. Right? And, what I like to do is I create 3 different goals for my company. So I do like the bare minimum goal where we really need to hit this. Then I have to survive. And then I have the medium and kind of reaching for the stars goals. And then I attach bonuses for my employees for each of those goals. So of course they go up. If you reach, the next one, you'll get even more. So that's a good way to know if your goals are achievable. You don't have to only have one. You could have multiple goals,
sure.
Right?
You can have daily goals.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can have hourly
and
goals.
You should, yeah, it's very true. Your goals should also be relevant and they need to align with your broader objective. So make sure that you're not distracted or trail off, because as entrepreneurs, we all do that.
Right.
And it's very, very easy to stray from the path where you're hitting your goals. So that's another reason why you write them down, because it's like, are you on that path? If you're going in the opposite direction, then you need to pivot and return to, the goal path. And then finally, every goal should really have a time frame or a deadline. So don't say we're going to hit this in a year. Break that down to quarters, monthly, and even weekly goals. Right. Like you said, even daily or hourly goals if needed. Because it doesn't seem so hard to hit when you look at a big annual goal. And then when you break it down to smaller segments of time, you're like, hey, this is doable. Right.
Exactly.
I can reach this. I can work on this.
Yeah. I mean, to go about the smart way of doing smart goals is to break it down, as Desiree said, to the smart way of aligning with your goals. But I would also recommend that you have your monthly goals, daily goals, and hourly goals. And the reason for that is because, again, to our earlier comment about being authentic and being true to yourself, because if you're not any one of those, you cannot get successful in the long term with the outside world. You got to get yourself internally aligned.
Yep, absolutely.
In a successful way. You should feel good about yourself first before you make everybody else good.
Yes.
Whatever business you're in, right?
Yep.
Whether it's a product or a service. And I believe that everybody has a sales, they're a salesperson, because you either sell a product or a service, right?
Very true.
So goal setting is a very important part of success of whatever you do. And it also helps you, as Desiree said, to recap and rewind and reflect on where you are. And because most of the times, whatever strategy you put together doesn't work.
Definitely.
Times,
yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Because you'll have market changes, competition, whatever, illness, life.
Lack of follow through.
Yeah, lack
right?
of follow through. There's multiple ways.
So that brings us to what steps can you use to make your goals reality,
yes.
Right?
Or setting strategic goals, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, making your goals reality, it's all about you have to write them down, right?
Absolutely.
Make them visible.
Yeah.
And you want them to be constant reminders. You don't want to just let 12 months pass and then say, hey, what were those goals again? And I've been guilty of this in the past, right? But now I'm very much more focused. And actually, my word of the year is focus.
Focus. Yeah.
That's what. Do you have a word of the year yet?
Yes, live well.
Live well. Love it.
That's
in all aspects.
Every aspect. And one of the things I've done that's my New Year thing. And every year I have something, but this year, to your point, live well. So anything I do, I ask the question: is this aligned with living well? And if it is not, I don't do it.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah, at least for the first 8 days of the year.
Right? I know. Oh, that's funny. So the next thing is commitment. So you want to take ownership of your goals.
Yes.
And you also want to provide your team or yourself some incentives to reaching those goals. If you don't have these incentives, a lot of times it's meaningless to your team. So you want them to be as involved as you are in pushing your company forward. And so creating like clear rewards. If they reach a certain goal, then they'll receive a reward, whatever that may be. And it could be even quarterly. It doesn't have to be just annual. It could be quarterly goals, monthly goals, whatever you set up. But definitely making it very clear that your team is committed. Take ownership of your responsibilities in order to hit your goals and provide incentives. Feedback and evaluation is another way you're going to help make your goals reality. You want, in order to make progress, you need to see what path you're on, and you may be straying a little bit to the left or the right. So you want to pivot back to where you should be going. And the way of knowing that is getting feedback from your team, constantly evaluating what you're doing. Is this working? Should we keep going?
Exactly.
Why are we doing this? Right? And then breaking down large goals into small goals. I know we already said this a couple times, but it's a big deal. Large goals can be very overwhelming. The larger a company gets, the more complicated your goals can get. And you want to make sure that they're attainable, and that when you break them down to smaller segments of time, they become more attainable. You want to stay aligned with your team. So goals should be consistently reminded to your team. So I would say at least monthly, reflect. Do you remember what your goals are? Mm-hmm. What are we heading towards? Why are we doing the work we're doing every day? We're doing this to hit these goals, and constantly remind your team and keep them aligned. Accountability. So make sure once you have your goals and then your strategy to hit your goals, assign tasks and responsibilities to your team members and yourself so that everybody is clear on the actions that they need to be taking in order to hit the goals, because that is a huge thing.
Yep.
I found myself at the beginning of my career as an entrepreneur, I wanted to take everything on, and it wasn't because I didn't trust anybody. I just thought they were my goals, so I should be the one to take a responsibility, but that's not how it should be.
Right.
So now I am very good at delegating and pushing those tasks on others, which has helped in my growth for sure. And finally, report on your progress. Right? You always have to see where you're at. And that's where those KPIs, those key performance indicators, will come into action, because you're going to be able to say, how many new clients did we get this month? Yeah. Did you hit your goal? Did you miss it? If you missed it, why did you miss it?
Right. Exactly.
If you hit it, celebrate.
Sure.
Right? So make sure that you have dashboards, or it could be a simple spreadsheet. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. If you do have dashboards, great. Yeah. If not, use a Google Sheet or an Excel file. Just keep track of all your KPIs and revisit them at least monthly, if not weekly.
That's awesome, Desiree. So, the step approach that you outlined, and the smart way of doing goals, it always reminds me of that. Always, everybody makes the statement: any long journey starts with the first single step. Mm-hmm. Goal setting is
baby
absolutely baby step, right? So, I'll tell you myself, doing on a daily basis when you're busy, you're a human being at the end of the day. You could be tired, you're not focused that day, and I tend to sometimes miss a lot of the hourly goals that I set, which translate into a crappy day some days.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And we all had that. So goal setting every morning or even the day before or the week before, because you can, one of the things I do is on a Saturday or a Sunday, I review my next week's assignments,
Mm-hmm.
what my things to do list is, and where
Prep
everything
yourself.
is. Prep yourself, right? And then you come to the day itself, and that's when the micro goals comes into play. So a long journey definitely starts with a step. It's a successful goal setting exercise starts with one step, that 1 hour, the first 15 minutes of the day.
Yep.
Whatever that is.
Yes.
Right. So let's talk about strategies. You talk about KPIs and things like that, right? So setting strategic goals for 2024 involves very clear, achievable goals. That is so very critical. It has to align with your organization's vision as well as the mission.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the alignment of stakeholders, especially in what our podcast is about, marketing and sales. Make sure that you both are aligned with what your strategic goals are, because as we talked about, strategic goals creation is the marketing entity, execution is the sales.
Mm-hmm.
If you both are not aligned and you work in your silos, there's going to be so many gaps, so many misalignments that you will have a lot of pointing fingers at each other at the end of the day.
Yep.
Right? So you don't want to do that. Make sure they are assessed on a regular basis. You look at the strengths, the weaknesses, analyze the market trends, and external factors that could influence whatever you're doing. So if you look at the assessment analysis, you need to do an internal analysis as to where your stakeholders are. You need to look at market trends. Like we talked about some of the things that took place in 2023.
Mm-hmm.
There will be some few things that are on the horizon for 2024, such as AI. How is AI going to impact your business if it does? Market trends, the vision and the mission alignment. It is so very critical to make sure all these 3 or 4 things that we talked about, internal analysis, market trends, vision and mission alignment, are all put in place. And how do you do that? KPIs that Desiree alluded to. What are KPIs? Key performance indicators. You should have a metric to measure these, because then you can go back and review not only your performance against the goal setting that you've done, you'll help you rewind, reassess, make changes with everything that's going on in the marketplace. And that's a continuing process that needs to happen for you being successful in your course. Do you want to talk about some of the marketing KPIs?
Yeah, so I thought I would walk the viewers, listeners through sort of how I break it down for my own company and how I teach my clients to do it as well. It's a simplistic process that I feel like, everyone will understand, and everyone, no matter what your business is like, will benefit from this discussion. So when I create my marketing goals, okay, we're talking about marketing right now.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Not general business goals, marketing goals right now. I really like to work backwards. So what I mean by that is, let's say we start with an annual revenue goal, which most businesses will start with that, right? So let's just say 480,000 annual revenue goal, okay? So what you want to do is you want to then break that down into quarters and then into months. So then you'll have a quarterly goal and you'll have a monthly goal, okay? So let's say you also have to understand that your monthly reoccurring revenue, I think a lot of people listening have repeat business, okay? Most businesses are not just that one-off and then you have to find another client.
Sure.
If it is, that's a very difficult business to have and to sustain. So it's best if you can figure out a business model where you have monthly reoccurring revenue, MRR, okay? So you want to do research on your current client base and figure out what that monthly reoccurring revenue is per client on average.
Right.
Okay, so let's just say, for the sake of this, that it's $2,000 a month that you're collecting from each client that comes on board. Okay. So once you know that, then you know what your monthly recurring revenue goal is because of your annual goal, and you divide that by 12. Mm-hmm. So let's just say it's 40,000. Okay, 40,000 in monthly recurring revenue is your goal. And if your average revenue per client per month is $2,000, then you need at least 20 clients per month to hit that number.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
So if you already have 8 clients currently, right, in 2023, you ended with 8.
Mm-hmm.
Now you need 12 more clients in order to hit your new revenue goals, right? Is everyone following me? So these are 2 KPIs right now that we have already. We have your monthly reoccurring revenue, which is 40,000, and you have 8 new clients that you want to get, or you want to obtain in 2024.
Right.
Okay, so those are KPIs right there. New clients and monthly reoccurring revenue, and they come hand in hand. If you get more clients, you're gonna increase your revenue. So then I want you to look at your conversion rate. So if you think of, okay, how do we get these 8 new clients?
Sure.
You're going to then have to look at your conversion rate. So let's say you're doing discovery calls or whatever your sales process looks like. I'm going to give the example of a discovery call or a sales call,
Sure.
right? Where you have to be on the phone in order to close this lead into a sale.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say if they're 20% conversion rates, for an example, then you're going to need 5 discovery calls in order to close 1 client, right? So that means that you need 40 sales qualified leads or discovery calls to hit your 8 new client goal for 2024. Okay. So now you have another KPI. That KPI is sales qualified leads or just leads, whatever you want to call them. Right. I would start with contacts, then marketing qualified leads, then sales qualified leads, then clients. That's kind of how I break them down. Exactly. But you don't have to be that complicated, or you could be more complicated, whatever your business structure is. So now we have MRR 40K. We have 8 new clients, right? We have 40 new sales qualified leads. Okay. And your conversion rates. Now, what I kind of want to talk about is, if you look at your strategy, right, and you say to yourself, I have good leads coming in, but my conversion rate is only 5%. Your goal may not be to get more leads. Your goal may be to improve your conversion rate.
There you go.
Okay, so you don't always have to get more. You may just have to improve a process.
Right.
And that is going to fix or increase your revenue, that in itself. So if you think about making one change in your sales process, that is going to impact your entire business. Imagine if you make 2 or 3 changes, right? So small change equals big impact in a lot of places. Exactly. So that's why I want to explain this, where if your conversion rate is only 5%, your goal may be to increase your conversion rate to 20. And that alone is going to be 15% more, right? Than what you were getting before. So that's more at the lower end of your sales funnel. But like a problem I had a couple years ago was my conversion rate was 50 to 70%. I was close. If I could get you on the phone, I could close you. So my issue was the top of the funnel, getting more leads in. So that was part of my goals. I need more leads to come in. My sales process is okay, but a lot of people have the opposite. So what I want you to do is really think about your sales process. Think about your lead generation activities. Where is it in your business that you're having the gap or the trouble or the issue? And then create your goals based on that. Okay. So that's kind of how I wanted to keep it simple, but that's how you create your KPIs for marketing. That's how I do it, at least.
Awesome. I mean, talking about KPIs and, the marketing and how, the alignment between marketing becomes so very critical, because as Desiree pointed out, you have all these KPIs. Ultimately, the execution falls on your sales staff. Now, some of the small businesses may be having both these functions integrated. They may not have separate marketing and sales functions, for sure, right? So, which that means that the execution part, I always have, sales. Sales is purely a numbers game, right? And I have I've always lived by this famous quote that Nelson Mandela did, which is, sales is a pure numbers game, right? And his famous statement is, you need to go through 100 no's to get to a 1 yes.
Yes.
Why do you waste time? Hurry up and finish up the 99 no's so you can get to the first yes.
Yeah.
Don't get disappointed. Just
keep going.
Just
Put
keep
your
going.
blinders on and
put the blinders
move
on,
forward.
and it's a very valid quote, because when I heard it number of years back, I made it that as a platform for myself to, why wait?
Yeah.
Go through your 99 goals. Oh, I got only 88 more to go.
Yeah.
I got 75 to go, but I'm getting there, right?
Yes.
The more easy, if you have a mindset, it's all about a mindset. So talking about sales KPIs, right? I can list about 13, 14 of them. I'm not going to go through each one of them, but some of the highlights is, as Desiree pointed out, sales revenue KPIs, right? You marketing has created, or if you have the same function, you created this on paper, the strategic goal of, this number to attain, the revenue goals, right? Now you do the selling part, whether it's by yourself or you have a specific sales team. You need to set the KPI as to how you're going to measure that small success that will lead you to the sales revenue KPI that you've alluded to. One other one that talk about is the conversion ratio, the conversion ROI, or return on investment. Your leads that are coming on. There's a lot of metrics that go into that. For example, when you have leads, you qualify leads. There's a whole sort of a profiling exercise that I run sometimes a workshop on. How do you qualify a lead into an active or a sub-prioritized list or a later list? Because a lot of your clients are not ready to go with you right now, whatever you're offering it. They may be ready a couple of months back.
Mm-hmm.
Some may be ready, a year or two later. But one of the important things to do around KPIs and sales is that don't go after clientele who are not ready, because you're wasting your time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a profiling exercise, a workshop that I do to look at how best to do profiling, right? But conversion rate, that accounts for the conversion rate, how best you can convert and keep track of it. Because you may need, as Desiree alluded to, you may have a change in the sales process. You need to go through, in a micro environment, what are the sales process involved? Let's say, for example, if you're involved in a hospitality business, what's your sales process looks like when somebody comes in to check in the hotel?
Mm-hmm.
What does that process looks like? Are they disappointed? Because it's all about the experience that you have. If your clients have a positive experience, they will tend to come back to you, and more importantly, they'll recommend you to 10 other people, right?
Definitely.
So conversion rates, sales pipeline metrics. How do you qualify or increase your sales pipeline? Because it's a very critical part of sales revenue, right? Productivity, sales productivity. How do you go about having, increase your sales productivity? Of course, there's other metrics such as average deal size, customer retention and churn, satisfaction surveys, the upsell or the cross-selling part of it, integrated KPIs between marketing and sales, and then customer lifetime value, which is another one. But I'm going to focus on the collective efforts of the sales marketing ROI, or return on investment KPI. Return on investment of both sales and marketing activities is a very critical evaluation you need to do, because as we talked about earlier, our talk is all about how do these two entities converge and create a successful platform for both to succeed in each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it is very critical to evaluate what marketing does, whether the strategic alignment is there with the sales team, because sales is the one that knows the market trends the best. You can have market research and news channels or papers that you can read through, but the actual information you get it from sales.
Yep.
As to what the market trends are.
And I remember, not to cut you off, Prem, but
No.
when I was in the corporate world, I remember getting calls from the sales team. They're like, did you guys put a promo out that says this? And we're like, well, yeah. And they had no clue. No clue. I'm like, how do we even get the idea to put a promo out without sales telling us which promos we should? So I cannot stress enough the communication between sales and marketing.
Absolutely.
It should be one and the same.
Exactly.
Even though they have different responsibilities, but you have to constantly communicate and create your goals based on that communication.
Absolutely. Great point. And the last one I will talk about is the customer acquisition funnel KPI. The visual representation of a customer journey from awareness to conversion. You need to track it, because I can tell you, one of the expertise that I have is reducing sales cycles. And I can tell you, putting a sales process in place can definitely impact the sales cycle. It can go down from as bad as 18 months to as short as 3 months if you are very successful, if you're diligent about figuring out what your sales process is and how you can minimize some of the decision making that goes in the sales process. So these are some of the KPIs that I would suggest that between marketing and sales that you allude to, that'll keep your goal setting process and the execution of it throughout, so that it's a result oriented organization that is measurable and achievable at the end of the day.
I just want to touch a little bit more on the marketing end, where once you have those goals set, like let's say lead generating goals, then you go into the strategy, right? And we're not going to really talk about strategy today so much as actually setting your goals. I mean, that is the object of this episode, is to make sure you are setting goals. But when you think about the goals that I mentioned earlier about lead gen, then you can go into, okay, how are we going to generate these leads? And then you have goals based on each of those activities. So for example, website traffic, right? Your KPIs could be your visits to certain pages, page views, bounce rates, how long did they stay on the page, conversions, meaning did they click a button like the contact us, did they fill out a form? Did they sign up for a webinar? Did they join your newsletter? Stuff like that. So keeping track of those are more KPIs, everybody. So make sure that you are thinking every single marketing activity I do, how can I extract a KPI to create a goal out of it? So if maybe your website traffic, you had 200 clicks this month, set a goal next month to get 230 or something like that, right? Social media metrics. So make sure you're keeping it. First of all, you should be posting every day. If you're not, you should be, because social media is a validation tool. It's also free. So everybody should be taking advantage of social media. But things like engagement, how far your reach was. So how many impressions did you get? People who clicked on your page or clicked from posts onto your web page from social media. So referral traffic. So, thinking about social media and what KPIs are important to your business and what you should be tracking. Same with your content performance. So maybe you have downloadables on your website. How many people downloaded those per month, let's say? Maybe they're blogs or white papers or videos or other content pieces. Think about, how you can create a KPI to measure the performance of your content that's going out. Your customer acquisition cost. This is huge. If you're spending $50 to obtain a customer who's only bringing in 5, unless that customer is going to spend $5 more than 10 times, then is it worth it? So you have to think about your cost per customer. How much did it cost for you to obtain that customer? Sure. Usually you break it down. How much did it cost for X amount of leads? If your conversion rate is B, how much did it cost, right? So then that can help you see, okay, I'm going to get approximately this many customers. If you know what your conversion rates are and you know how many leads that you got, then you can break down the cost. So make sure you are actually doing this math, everybody, because sometimes a marketing activity is not worth it. Right? Sometimes you're losing money. Unless it's reoccurring revenue, you might lose money on the initial investment, but you'll gain it back over time. That's fine. But if it's a one-off, you guys have to be very careful about your cost per acquisition or cost per customer. And finally, brand awareness. So, brand mentions, brand sentiment. You can measure online mentions. There's actually software that can help you find this stuff. This is a little deep and advanced, I would say, if you're a business just starting out. you don't have to quite worry about that, but definitely take into consideration the other things.
Absolutely. Thank you for that summary of the social media, because that's another change that is taken in the marketplace. I want to touch quickly on, we already touched upon a few things about the alignment between marketing and sales. And, I want to stress upon the fact that between the marketing and sales, there's different functions. There's market research, there is strategic teams, there is communication teams on the marketing side, and then of course, measuring of the social media and things like that, as Desiree alluded to. On the sales side, it's purely on the execution part of it, and it is very critical to make sure that all the stakeholders between these two teams are on the table when you are doing the goal setting exercise for your organization. Now, as I said earlier, in some organization, these two work streams may be together, maybe the same person must be doing it. Irrespective of how the workload is divided, make sure the stakeholders are aligned on that. What we're going to do next, in the interest of time, is quickly touch upon the overcoming challenges in goal setting. Desiree, do you want to quickly run through them, and then we can come back and figure out, the tools and resources that kind of help you?
Yes, I'll run through this. So, first of all, if your goals are too vague or ambiguous, then you're not going to hit them. So remember the SMART criteria that we went over at the very beginning of this episode: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So do not have vague goals. Be very specific. Another issue is overwhelming yourself with setting too many goals. That is another thing that is dangerous, because if they're not attainable in terms of the overwhelm with too many, then you're just setting yourself up for failure. So be careful of that. Lack of alignment with your vision and your mission. Yeah. If your vision and mission are offline with where you set your goals, then that's going to be very difficult to reach them. Unrealistic expectations. If you're expecting 80 hours out of your team, but they can only give you 40 a week, that's an unrealistic expectation. Correct. If you don't plan or have a strategy, obviously anybody can set a goal, but how are you going to get there? Right. So make sure your plan is very specific and it's aimed towards your goals. Failure to monitor progress. So if you're not checking in on whether or not you're reaching your goals either weekly or monthly, then at the end of the year, you're going to either be really surprised or really disappointed. So you need to keep tracking and make sure you monitor the progress. And then what that allows you to do is, if you're off course for a couple weeks, you can get back on course and still reach that goal. Exactly. Inflexibility is another one. So, you can be rigid to a certain point, but that's also dangerous, because there's always circumstances in business where things come up and, you're changing your direction or your services, or you're always optimizing. So don't be too rigid. Make sure you stay flexible. Poor communication. If you are not communicating your goals, remember, with sales and marketing, right? Or just with your team in general, and the stakeholders should all know, they should be able to rehearse exactly what goals you are setting for the company easily. It should be like second nature to them. Lack of motivation and alignment. So give your team members incentives that can motivate them to keep going. And you might want to do it on a quarterly basis instead of an annual. And then setting and forgetting. And this comes with writing it down and constantly reminding your team and communicating. Right. Don't set your goal and forget about it and then revisit it a year later. Right. Make sure you constantly are reminding your team and staying on it and realigning. Sure. And that's about it. That's about it.
Right. Thank you. And as Desiree said, I would suggest that each of you, when you're evaluating, get into these roadblocks that will come in the way of successful goal setting. Let's quickly discuss, in the interest of time, we got about another 5-7 minutes left. Some of the tools that can help you, or the resources that can help you monitor the progress or the failure, or I should say opportunities, on goal setting. Do you want to quickly cover that, and then I'll come back with some
Yeah.
successful case studies?
So for project management, everybody, if you don't already have a project management software, you need to be using it, especially if there's a team of more than you. If you actually have a team, it's very important. So for an example, Trello, Asana, or Monday.com, I personally use Asana. There is a free version. So if you're not too deep involved, you can use it for free as long as you want. And it's awesome. I do pay for it for my team because I wanted to create workflows and have automation. But it allows you to organize task management. There's progress tracking, collaboration, workflows, communication tools. It's really awesome. The next thing is performance dashboard. So you want to know how well your team are performing on the KPIs that you use to set your goals. So there's some examples are Tableau, Microsoft Power BI, or the Google Data Studio. These are really good or even if you just need a spreadsheet, right? Like Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets, you can do a lot of customizable tables and stuff in these. It's amazing, actually, the capabilities. If you're actually trained on using Google Sheets or Excel, it can go pretty deep. Time management tools is really, really important if you have a team or if you're doing client work. Rescue Time, Toggle, or Clockify. I've used both Toggle and Clockify. They both work well. I think even QuickBooks has a time management software embedded into it. Customer relationship management. So your CRM, so super critical, especially for sales, but for marketing and sales, to keep track of really who are those opportunities, right? Who do you have opportunities and who are they? And when's the last time you followed up and when should you follow up? So a CRM is critical. Communication and collaboration platforms. These are like Slack, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, Google Workspace. That's what I use. I love it. It has everything you need on there. Financial management like QuickBooks, FreshBooks, or Xero. These are all great platforms where, all your accounting and your bookkeeping can stay in there. And that's really about it for the high level, getting a business going.
That's awesome. So evaluate these tools to figure out what is best. As Desiree said, if you're starting off, you don't need to get all these tools. There are a lot of free versions of it. Like she said, Microsoft Excel. Find somebody who's got a certification in Microsoft Excel. Maybe not that expensive to do that. That will be enough for you to start a business.
Well, what I did for Asana is I hired an expert I paid them $50 an hour to train me for like 4 hours.
There you go.
It was $200, the best money I ever spent. And now I know how to use the tool and I recorded it. So now my team will. So example.
Go. So I know in the interest of time, we will go into some of the success stories in realizing business goals, right? I'm going to take a few of them. The best that comes to my mind, which has captured the imagination of the entire world, is Amazon, right?
Yes.
If you look at, they wanted to become the most customer-centric company in the world.
Love it.
That was their goal. Now, if you look at what they've done, they've dropped it down to a micro level, and today, the word Amazon brings amazing results. And I'm being a customer of Amazon. I can tell you some of the success stories. Like you ask anything, it'll come to your doorstep in 24 hours. They track you. They send you a message.
And it'll get faster.
It'll get faster.
There's a photo of it on your doorstep now.
On your doorstep.
Yes.
Right? So it is an amazing story of how setting up goals can lead to this kind of efficiency and amazing with Amazon. Apple, design and create innovative products, right? If you ask me the question about how you get innovative and successful in product line, I've asked this question to a lot of people. When you watch everybody of course have an Apple Watch, right?
Yep.
And I asked the question or ask the question about whether you have an iPhone or a smartphone, and everybody has a smartphone.
Yep.
Then the next question I asked them, how much did you spend on it? You don't know. Why? Because the product is so good that you don't care about the money
doesn't
that
matter.
you spend.
Yeah.
And I can give you an example because I'm very careless with the earplugs. I lost maybe 3 of them And I would work out with them, and I put it in my pockets. And
then you lose them?
No, I don't lose them. It goes in the laundry for a wash.
Oh.
A couple of times.
Tisk, tisk.
A couple of times I used it. It worked for another week, and I go, what? I mean,
wow.
It died out. But my point here is that they're such an amazing product that it went through a wash cycle.
Yes.
And it still worked for a week.
Yep.
I mean, think about it. So.
And that product became what it is today because of the goals.
Because of the goals, exactly. Netflix. I mean, I'll leave the last example of Netflix because they have cornered the world as far as entertainment is concerned, right?
Yep.
They were actually Blockbuster, if you remember Blockbuster. They
Yes.
had offered themselves for a very small amount, which Blockbuster took it off the table, and Blockbuster kind of disappeared. And here Netflix, they have movies, they create movies, they cater movies, they create talk shows. I
Yep.
mean, anything under the world of entertainment, they are Netflix. So these are some of the great examples of some companies that have set goals and realized their goals very successfully. So to recap today, right? We talked. It's a huge subject of just to tell the audience. Desiree and myself, we are working on having a workshop on goal setting, and we'll offer it to, of course, people in Hunterdon. We will think about making that as a virtual workshop so that other participants can join in. We're working on that workshop, so stay tuned in. But to highlight what we did today, we reflected on 2023. We reflected, we understood the power of goal setting. We talked about how do you stretch strategic goal setting, the SMART goals, and how do you realize them. We talked about aligning all the stakeholders, and then we talked about the resources, and we talked about some of the examples of. So that's what our goal setting talk is about. It's just a quick review into the upcoming episode, which will be in 2 weeks. We have, we try to bring in a discussion on some of the topics as we did today, followed by an entrepreneur who's lived some of the things that we talked about. So next week, or after 2 weeks, we have Jim Gano, who is a very well-established entrepreneur, and he owns a franchise, Crown Trophy. We're not talking mostly about franchising, but the way he's gone through to make that a successful enterprise, and he is being recognized and in the Hall of Fame within the franchise world because of the success that he had.
That's
so
awesome.
We're going to get Jim Gano in 2 weeks to talk about his experiences and some of the things that we can talk about. You want to take home or take us home?
So subscribe to our podcast on Spotify. You can find us on Conversion Chronicles, the Facebook page. Please leave us reviews and ratings on these platforms. And that way it will help other podcast listeners find us. And you can go to our website at conversionchronicle.com. You can subscribe to our newsletter, which will tell you about upcoming episodes. It is Conversion Chronicle without the S.com. We could not get the one with the S.com. And that's really about it. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you all next time.
Thank you very much. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year, everybody.